So to kind of walk a little slower through that first phase, understanding the purpose and the expectation of the review is key. What's the application supposed to do? What are the major divisions between the application's components, the modules, those interfaces, those trust boundaries? Really important to understand that. And really what we're talking about there is the attack surface. Where are the places where data can get into the system, and what value does that provide an attacker? So let's start talking about some of the techniques when you're actually doing the review of code. The first is called top-down, and that's where you just read the code from the start to the finish, and it's, hands down the most used, best way of doing it. Obviously, you just read all the code. It may not always be practical if you're given a massive amount of code to review, though. So kind of the opposite approach is what's called bottom-up, and that might be where you search for certain functions are dangerous. For example, you could grep an entire code base for something like strcpy and see if it was misused, or see if they have a habit of misusing things like integers or functions or return values. Even looking for things like fixmes has been certainly something I've seen in my career, and it depends on kind of the type of the audit that you're doing. So if you're trying to find kind of all the bugs and really take more of a defensive look at a code base, probably grepping for fixmes is not the best way. But if you're kind of, attacking a code base from more of a hacker's mindset, which is, hey, I just need to find one bug in Safari so I can go and sell it for $10,000 to some, program that buys vulnerabilities, like the Zero Day Initiative, ZDI is a place you could sell vulnerabilities to. You might be able to just go and get the JavaScript code base, which is open source, grab it for fixmes, and find a place where a developer has said, hey, I think I did this wrong. I'm going to come back and fix this later, but they haven't had a chance to do it yet. That might be enough to find you, one bug. So again, understanding the type of audit that you're doing is really important. And don't forget that even though this is a manual code audit, still certainly you can use any tools you want. There's source code navigators. There's a tool called SCI Understand that I've used before and like the way that it shows code, and you can bounce back and forth between cross references to where things are declared and things. So tools are certainly something that you should use as part of a manual analysis. It's just that the human is the one understanding where and how the bugs, got in, rather than trying to scan it with a tool that just looks at a whole code base. So some other techniques you might want to consider: line by line is basically where you, just look through those lines and certain functions, take good notes. Those notes are going to be useful when you generate your final report. Another technique is called desk checking, and that's quite helpful when you have particularly sort of confusing bit of code, kind of mathematical, or we're shuffling bits and bytes back in and out of arrays or anything like that, where you might need to figure out, can this function ever generate value X? And then finally, multiple passes is a technique where you look at a particular bit of the code first. So, start with the design. Are there any poor design principles? And then look at the functions. Do they forget to return values? Do they use dangerous APIs? And then start digging down. Take another pass, a multiple pass. Look for corruption vulnerabilities. Look for synchronization issues. So you're looking at the same code over and over, but you're only looking for one issue at a time. And that helps us humans kind of limit the scope of what we're thinking about at any one time.